Welcome back to another episode of Tairyu's Tips, and today we're going to talk about how much air do you actually need. So I've done some videos on tone workshops, and this was actually maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, and I talked about this tool called a Voldine, which helps, just show you how much air you're actually taking in, and it's a great exercise to fill the full volume of your lungs. But how much of that air do you actually need? And so when I talk about this with my students, I usually put it under the category of Shakuhachi ergonomics. And with Shakuhachi, I find that the balance should be something like 40-60. So 40% of it comes to be from the volume, the amount of air that you're using, and 60% of it comes to do with the amount of air the speed of the air that comes out through the shape of the embouchure. So a good way to think about this is think about a garden hose. If you can turn the water up and up and up and just keep going volume of water spewing out, and then you can get the water to go quite far to water the plants, but it's wasteful. Rather, what you can do is you can turn the water down and then cover the whole of it with a thumb, and then the water will go much further, the proverbial water. And so same thing with Shakuhachi. If I like to take quite a big breath, but I don't want to fill the lungs. If you imagine them as a cup and you fill it with water, I don't want to fill the lungs all the way up to the brim like we used to do when we were like 3 years old, fill the cup of juice all the way to the top so it's bubbling at the top. It's unstable and you're going to spill somewhere and you won't have control over it. But something like 80%, fill the lungs 80% of the way. Then from there, I really think about the shape of the embouchure that I want to send the air the farthest. And what I mean by this in terms of the farthest is that the most I can get out of the flute, because I don't want to be too tight where I'm now sending the sound all the way up to the top and having very high overtones and very nasally sounds. I'd like to keep it into the resonant part of the flute where everything is resonating. So even here, it's almost like the amount I'm blowing is like as if I was blowing over like a hot bowl of soup, or kind of blowing on a hot cup of coffee. About that same level of pressure is what I use to play on basic notes. Right? So meaning that if I'm just going to play something like, I'm not blowing that hard at all. Now, if I was to do like a technique like muraiki or do explosive sounds, of course I'm going to be using more air. But in general, you don't need as much air pressure as I think you might be thinking that you need. Rather, think of it as blowing over a cup of coffee or a hot cup of tea. I hope this tip was helpful, and I'll see you guys next week for another Shakuhachi tip.